I invite you just to join me if you would. If you feel comfortable to close your eyes, you can. Just get comfortable where you're at. And we just take this time to pause. We take this time to be still. In the busyness of this weekend and the busyness of today, we just pause and we get still. And as the song says, we bring our thoughts inward into that secret place, into that place of stillness, that place of calm, that place of peace. And we say, peace, be still to our hearts and to our minds. And we release that same peace in this place this morning. May each and every person feel the embrace of that peace. And we send this peace, this presence outward to our entire country and world this morning. Peace, be still. Peace, be still. And we rest and we find our strength. We find our calm. We find that presence and that peace that passes all understanding. And we're grateful and we're thankful that we always have this source, this supply. It is always readily available. All we have to do is turn our attention toward it. And we just take a moment to enter into the stillness and rest in this presence. And as we return to this present moment, we are so thankful for that peace, for that calm, for that place, that secret place that we can go whenever we need that peace. And so it is. Amen. For those of you who may be wondering, Trish is winging her way to Unity Village this morning. She will be in Unity Village this week, and we wish her the best. And she will be watching the stream, so we wish her the best. I want to share with you this morning, the title of today's talk is One Thing Needful. And our little teaser we gave out was, what if only one thing made all the difference in the world? Would you want to know what it is? Now, I have to be honest with you. I asked Josh what that one thing was, and he said it was $4 billion. And as great as that would be, we want to talk about what that one thing needed is. There's going to be two words that are going to come up in my text, so I want to cover what they are. The first one is worry. And this quote says, worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but doesn't get you anywhere. Distraction, on the other hand, is like, look, a squirrel. There was a time back in my younger years when I was about 19, I drove a delivery truck, and I was driving one morning on the way to my next store. I was a vendor. I put out magazines and newspapers and such, and I was driving to my next stop, and I got distracted. And I looked up, and I didn't know, but they were having construction on a bridge that I had to go over. So when I looked up, all I seen was construction. The next few minutes were a blur to me because all I seen was railing and water, and the next thing I saw is I was going on the other side of the bridge. I don't know how I got from point A to point B. I have no idea. All I know is I was very shook up. And right down the bottom of that bridge was my next stop, and I just stopped there. And I spent about 30 minutes in my truck trying to gain composure. And this man came up, he drove up and parked beside me, and he goes, "I want to know how you did that." And I said, "How I did what?" And he said, "That truck just did this thing that's not physically possible." And I said, I can't explain it. I don't know. And I shared with him the same thing I shared with you. The point of that is distraction can get you in a lot of trouble. It's easy to get distracted in life. It's easy to, especially in this day and time. But yet there is this thing called grace, that even when we don't necessarily do things the way we should, we still find things work out. We still find that things unfold for our good. And that's an encouragement this morning, because the talk that I'm going to share with you, it's not a prescription. I say this a lot. It's not me giving you what you need to do. It's a description of what I have found that works for me that I want to share with you. And if you get something out of it, great. And I pray you do. But we're going to take up in Luke chapter 10, verse 38 through 42 is a story of Jesus. And you'll notice that when I use Bible, a lot of it is around Jesus, because he is the way shower. He is the one who I am a Christ follower, and I believe in the teachings of Jesus. They're full of so many principles. And I was sharing for service this morning that many times he started his message, "If you have ears to hear, hear." And I paraphrased it with the group this morning. I said, if you have ears on the side of your head, listen up. Now, as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. Now, I think it's important to enter in here that Mary and Martha weren't just somebody he met this day. These were actually they were very close friends of his. They were actually the sisters of Lazarus, who later he would actually raise from the dead. Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying, but Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, I love this. This happens a lot in Scripture. Jesus gets asked this question a lot. And have you ever been there? Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work myself? I know it's Father's Day, but this would have been a good place for women to amen. Tell her to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. There's some interesting things, and I'm a Bible nerd, so I like to share these things, so take it for what it's worth. But there's a few interesting things historically in here. One, that Martha owned this house. Women didn't own property in these times unless, they were sisters. That doesn't say anything about them being married, but that was actually a very unique thing for her to own the house. It said it was her house. And that Mary was sitting at the feet of the master, of the rabbi, and usually when a rabbi was teaching, the men was who he taught. So it was very unique for her to sit there. So not only, probably it wasn't just Martha that was giving her side eye about not helping her. There was probably other people in the house saying, why is she not doing what she's supposed to be doing, and why is she sitting where she shouldn't be sitting? See, Jesus was way ahead of his time. He didn't see those kind of, he was one of the first to really, he didn't see differences. He embraced, he was inclusive. You find all of his teachings are very inclusive. That's why if you are a follower of Christ, a very characteristic we should have is inclusiveness. There shouldn't be otherness. There aren't those people. There's only us. In unity, there's only us. There's no them. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that, especially in these times that we live in. We live in a very divided, very divisive time. And I'm going to speak to it a little bit this morning because it fits into this, and I feel like it needs to be spoken to. But I want to tell you that nothing I say this morning is political or judgmental. It's simply holding what we believe unity to be. And unity is inclusive. Everyone's welcome at the table. And that's basically what Jesus said to Martha. He said, Martha, you got a lot on your mind. You're distracted about many things. You're worried about many things. But there's only one thing that's necessary, and Mary has chose that thing, and I'm not taking it away from her. See, there's a paradox, and I share this a lot, and I know some of this is repeat, and some of this may be just a reminder, but there's a paradox that we as divine spiritual beings, we're limitless in our potential. And as humans who live in these bodies, in this life, with this brain, we find ourselves limited a lot. But even in our limitedness, even in the times of weakness, we have access to the limitlessness of spirit, to the divine, to the mind of God, to the great consciousness, to the higher power, to the one who can give us, we have the source of all wisdom at our fingertips, within us. That's the one thing that Mary chose. She chose to be present in his presence. There was something about this man, Jesus, that was different than any other man she had met. When he looked at her and saw her like no other person saw her. When he spoke to her, there was a love, there was a peace, there was a strength that emanated from him that she had never known before. And she wasn't going to miss it. Even his opponents, if you will, those who set themselves against Jesus, those who wanted to crucify him, also recognized that he spoke with such authority because he spoke from his divinity. He spoke from spirit. He spoke from that presence that we have within us as well. See, there's only one thing needful in this life, and that is that we connect with the divine within us and find our strength there, and find our wisdom there, and find our peace there, and find our love there, not just to receive, but to live from and to give out. I love that song this morning because if there's anything this world needs this morning, it is love. We need more love. We don't see much love on the news. But I want to tell you something. We, as children of God, we as Christ followers, or however you define yourself, that divinity, that spirit that lives within you, that love, that power, that peace, that light is not only meant to transform your life, but it's meant to transform this world. And we're able to do that simply by staying connected, staying plugged in. We're never disconnected, but sometimes in our minds we create a separation. We create a belief of weakness. We create a belief of scarcity. We create a belief in otherness, of prejudice, of anger. Because see, all that's wrong in this world, all that someone might classify as evil is actually created by human beings. That's the power we have. But church, I want to tell you something that's very important. The flip side of that is even more true. We're able to create atmospheres of love, atmospheres of peace, atmospheres of joy, and it behooves us as unity to be unity. We say it every Sunday, but I'm going to tell you, this world needs love. This world needs unity. And I'm not talking about just the movement. I'm talking about the reality of our oneness and our relationship with the divine. I'm talking about that power and that love that lives within us. And I'm going to tell you, this group, you are already good at expressing and manifesting that. Because almost 3 years ago, I walked in these doors and I was blown away by the welcome and the love and the warmth that I found here. I didn't know you, you didn't know me. The only thing I did know is y'all were a little woo-woo. There, you did your services a little different. I actually went back and read my journal this morning, and I said, I finally visited Unity. And even though it was different, I loved it there, was what I said in my journal. I said some other things, but that's none of your business. Anyway. Oh, goodness. See, Mary, I want to look at Mary and Martha, and it's not in a right or wrong. There's no judgment, there's no shame, there's no guilt. A talk should never make you feel bad. It might wake you up, it might make you uncomfortable, but I'm going to tell you something. If it makes you uncomfortable, it's because there's something that is in you that wants to change, because there's a higher calling, a better way than what you're living at that moment. There's something that you want to change, and you don't even know, maybe. But Mary chose presence. She chose connection. She chose to be present in the presence. Now, she could have just went and joined her sister in the kitchen. There was plenty to do. She could have completely distracted herself, would have never heard anything Jesus said, would have never spent any time in that presence, and would have left that, when he left that day, she would be unchanged, not really impacted. We could do the same thing here. We could come into this place where there's such love and presence, and we can miss it if we're distracted, if we stay in our minds. Anybody else? I have a habit of sometimes getting all in my head and missing what's happening in spirit. Anybody else have that? Yeah. It's a choice to connect. See, we call this being centered or being still or entering the stillness or practicing the presence. It's living connected to the divine within. It's our oneness consciousness. It's our peace, our strength, our faith, our power, our wisdom, our understanding, our guidance in life. See, not only did Mary choose the better part, as Jesus said, but she went against the expectations of all of those around her because she wasn't going to miss connecting. It was a choice. The second thing she did is she focused. She gave attention to the words that he spoke. You see, you can hear what someone's saying, but it doesn't mean you're listening. Remember Charlie Brown? Wah, 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 wah. Or maybe you've heard this one. Yes, dear. You know, we can hear but not listen sometimes. And that's a spiritual principle as well. So I want to talk about, so what can keep us off-center or unaware of this presence? Well, Jesus points out two things. One is worry. Worry is simply fear. It's faith in the limitation or scarcity. It's being insecure and focusing on what we think we lack control of. And in actuality, it's an illusion. And it's that rocking chair that gives us something to do, but it doesn't accomplish anything. Now, I don't want to go too far without saying this. I'm not talking about spiritual bypass here. I'm not saying, well, let's just be positive. Let's get rid of this worry and distractions. No, if you have worry, lean into that worry and find out why. Where's it coming from? You see, there's a principle in Unity. It's denial and affirmation. But before you deny something, you got to understand it. Why am I worried? What is it? Why is this worry taking this shape? And you lean into it. And be compassionate with yourself when you have doubts, when you have fears, when you have worry, even when you get angry, even when you get stressed, even when you get frustrated with people who don't agree with you or don't believe the way you do. That's a legitimate feeling. Own it. Don't start from where you want to be. Start from where you are and be honest and sincere and real with yourself. And feel what you feel and lean into it. Because we're never about, anything Trish and I talk about, we're never talking about sweeping things under the rug and just pretending everything's okay. The second thing Jesus talked about was distractions. Distractions are diversions, interruptions, disturbances, intrusions, interference, hindrances. See, sometimes we allow, or sometimes we even choose things that obstruct our highest good. And it may not even be just the highest good for you in your life. It may be your highest good in that particular situation in your life, dealing with someone else. I had a staff member this week who usually deals very passive-aggressively, very spiritual person, always says the right things and always acts the right way, and tells you all the things you want to hear, and then you think, oh, everything's good, and then all of a sudden you feel this sharp pain in your back, and you realize, oh, he did get me. And we found a situation this week where I've been really working on this in myself, of really owning what I'm feeling and what's going on in my heart and mind, and this person walked into our office and just was so ugly, that's about a better way of saying it. And immediately, instead of just reacting, I took a step back and I became the observer. And what I found was I had compassion. And the first thought that came into my mind was, you know what? We've been doing our youth program for 2 weeks, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it's been hot outside. And I'm like, he's been working with youth all day out in the heat. His fuse is a little short. I'm going to give him some compassion. I'm going to give him some space. And so I just let him vent for a little bit. And then we were able to resolve whatever it was. And you know, he went on and probably hasn't given it another thought. But for me, I was like, that was a victory for me, because I was able to put in practice not to be, as Trish spoke on one Sunday, not to be reactive, but to respond. Because he didn't need a boss to react. He needed a boss to respond with grace, with love, with understanding, and with wisdom. And I tapped into the source of all those things. And it's not my ego or my personality, because I did think of things I wanted to say. But I connected. See, Martha allowed her mind to focus on the limitation. She stayed in her role that she saw herself in, and all she could think of is, I need help, my sister's not helping me, and that's frustrating, and the Lord doesn't care. But let's don't pick on Martha, because we've all been there. See, Martha represents our outer consciousness, our living from our outer wisdom and understanding. Mary represents our inner awareness, our inner consciousness, our being able to tap into the divine. And there's times that we're going to be Martha, and there's times we're going to be Mary. See, life is about balance. I'm not one of those that says we need to get rid of ego. I don't want to get rid of my humanity. I want to embrace it and integrate it and learn how to live in a more abundant life. That's the calling. Life is about balance. You can be out of balance by being too spiritually minded or too outer minded. You ever known anybody who's so spiritually minded they're no earthly good? Yeah. The secret is to know where you're at this moment and to regain that balance. And sometimes that's just simply pausing, going within, and connecting with the divine, connecting with the Christ within, because we need that. And that's not a sign of weakness, that's a sign of strength. That's a sign of spirituality. That's a sign of integration. Because you see, it's all about raising our consciousness. I'm not talking about self-improvement. I'm talking about discovering who you already are. I'm talking about divine alignment, divine ordering. I'm talking about connection. I'm talking about unity. That's our natural state. That's where we actually live. That is our ultimate reality. We may not be experiencing it. We may not be mindful of it, but it's always there. What can we do when we feel disconnected? Disconnection is an illusion that we create, but we have an eternal GPS. And if you get sensitive, you will hear sometimes the Spirit say, rerouting, rerouting. Because I don't know about you, Siri has got me in some crazy places. Not word correct, but the spiritual GPS works all the time. Pay attention. What do you mean by your internal GPS, Mike? Pay attention to how what you're thinking makes you feel. I don't know about you, but all the things that have been happening politically, and yes, I am going to go there for a moment, but I'm only going to go from the spiritual standpoint on it, makes me anxious inside. The energy of what I see. Okay, do you love me?
Love you, Mike. Go for it.
Okay, because I'm fixing to test it. That energy is challenged by the attitudes on both sides. On both sides. Because I'm not here to tell you who's right or wrong or judge who's right or wrong. I'm here to simply say we're unity. And we should be living from a higher consciousness. And whether we understand it or not, all of humanity is in the same boat. We might be pointing at the people in the stern and saying, you're wrong, you don't believe right, and you're doing wrong. But we're still in the bow of the boat. And we're going to all go in the same direction. So what I should be doing is putting my principles to work that I know and holding high watch for our nation, for our neighbors, praying for a lifting of our consciousness, for a higher consciousness in this nation. Because we need that. Because nothing else works. For thousands of years, humankind has tried it. We've tried wars. We've tried prejudice. We've tried fighting. We've tried everything we can possibly try, and we're still having the same problems that we had for thousands of years as humankind, as a race. But I know something that's changed my life immeasurably, and that is I have found that I am part of something much greater than what I used to be. I call it unity. I call it oneness with God. I call it spirit. And you know what? I think this world needs some. But it's not about me preaching and judging. It's about me being that unity, manifesting that unity. Because what I found is people can't argue with you if you don't argue back. It's hard to argue with somebody who's loving you. Now, I'm not saying you got to agree. I'm not saying that you got to give up your values. I'm not saying that you don't have to sometimes voice and say the truth. But you should do all things in love. and from that place of unity. You know, I read a book recently, some of you may have heard about it. Mel Robbins wrote a book about let them. Anybody heard of it? That let them principle. Man, it's revolutionized my life, because some of those, you know, that Mr. and Mrs. Sandpaper that rub you the wrong way, I can just let them be who they are. I just let them be who they are. Some people are easier to love from a distance. That's true. And I just let them. But I hold them in love, I hold them in prayer, and I let them. Second part of that principle is, then what do you do? It's not about me changing people. It's not about me fixing people. It's not about me controlling people. It's about me checking in with myself and dealing with how I react or how I respond. Okay. I better move on. Y'all got quiet on me. All right. See, it's not about doing. If you listen to ego, if you listen, what are we going to do with this world? What are we going to do with what's going on? It's not about doing. It's about being. You always start with being. Who am I? And when I come from that place of being, the wisdom, the compassion, the understanding begins to flow. Then my doing becomes empowered by my being. And that is the process. Okay, I'm getting ready to close. And you know what a Pentecostal minister means when he says we're getting ready to close? Absolutely nothing. He means nothing. Okay. Opportunities to rise above. This life, this world we're in, this moment, we are here for a reason. And we are here. The fact that you're here means that you have the power to rise above everything that comes in your life. This world and the life we find ourselves in is an opportunity to arise above our obsolete beliefs, our prejudices, our limiting fears, and choose purposefully to live from an inner truth and love that is divine in essence and will transform our world, but only if we choose to be present and we choose unity. May we choose unity in these divisive times. May we choose love in these times where there's too much hate. May we offer acceptance rather than judgment. May we include instead of othering each other. Living this way is hard and it's messy. It takes humility. It takes willingness to change our minds. But it is the only true way to live, for nothing else works. How many thousands of years will it take humanity to learn and understand this truth? In unity, there is no room for them, only us. I wanted to read this quote by James Twyman. He said, you have invested so much energy in being separate that the realization of your oneness creates the illusion that you might lose something rather than gain everything. I'm going to read that one more time. You have invested so much time and energy in being separate that the realization of your oneness creates the illusion that you might lose something rather than gain everything. We are at a place this morning, this group, because I know you, where we are set to gain everything. I said to someone this morning, as you watch the news, as you see what's going on in the world, and I purposely took myself out of social media and news this weekend because I wanted to focus on this here message. But as you do that, I want you to understand that underneath all the noise, underneath all the showboating, and behind all the yelling and anger and frustration, there is a presence. There is a power. There is a spirit that is working, and all things are going to work for our good because we're in a place to gain everything, not to lose. It may not look that way, but that is what unity brings. And so it is.
Thank you for joining us today. Please visit www.unityofsebring.org for more information, to submit a prayer request, or to donate to our ministry. We hope to see you again very soon.